Hey guys, how's it going? Lebanon 2100 here. I'm going to be doing yet another Aura tutorial video, and I have to apologize. I have been promising one video every day, and for the past day, I think it might have been two, I'm pretty sure it was only yesterday though, that I didn't get a video up. And the reason I didn't get a video up yesterday, or possibly for 2 days, actually now that I think about it, it might be 2 days, anyway, is because I got Assassin's Creed Revelations, and I've just been playing that for the past few days, and also because I kind of lost the will to do any kind of YouTube video again after I went through 2 hours of trouble to get a Skyrim Let's Play up, and the first video said it would take about 90 something minutes to upload, and then I'm like, yeah, that's alright. I go to sleep, I wake up in the morning and it tells me it's got about 1,000 minutes before the first video was uploaded. I was just like, no. So, cancelled that idea. So, as promised, 2-ish, whatever days ago, I forget, we are going to be doing class design and ship design. So, this is the class design menu. This is where you'll be designing ships, for various purposes, warships, survey ships. This gets very complicated, as you can probably see. I'm not going to try and confuse you. I'm just going to explain the basics to get round to building a basic ship. I won't go into these into detail just yet because I will be horrible at explaining it, and because we don't need to yet. Most of these really only come into play when you have a warship, and we're not going to be designing a warship for this tutorial. We're going to be designing a geological survey ship, which is designed to go around to planets and survey for other minerals, because Earth will not have enough minerals to keep us going. So to start off, we're going to click New. Huzzah. Alright, so these classes, you can rename these. Obviously, Akagi is a Japanese sort of name, and you can change that to whatever you want, but the theme usually changes what your default class name is. So you can auto rename this, and there's going to be like more Japanese name: Kongo, Hosho, Soryu. The type, obviously we want this to be a ship. The PDC is a Planetary Defense Center, I think it is anyway. We don't need to build this just yet. Hull. Now, this is purely cosmetic. You don't get any stat bonuses or stat losses or whatever by changing a hull type. The hull type is merely an organizational, cosmetic sort of thing. So, in this list, I'm going to pick a geological surveys vessel, and that is gravitational. Gravitational is what we'll be building a bit later. So now we have a Soryu class geological survey vessel. We have its weight in tons. We have the current crew that it requires. This is the build points. Build points is basically all the materials added up to get a general cost of how much the ship is. Also, when you fast create ships, which I'm going to show you how to do for these ships, you'll be using build points instead of materials, but we'll get to that. TCS you don't really need to worry about that much. That's some target control something or other. I can't remember now. You don't need to worry about it, it's not important for this tutorial anyway. Thermal and electromagnetic. This is how much thermal your ship gives off and how much electromagnetic, whatever you call it, goes off your ship. So if a enemy ship has, say, thermal detection and you have a really high thermal rating, then they're going to detect you really easily. So you want to have these values as low as possible, but we don't need to worry about that because we're in our own system right now. Nobody's going to find us just yet. Second line, we have speed. We don't have any engines yet, so this is really, really low. Armor, you don't really need to worry about this for a survey vessel, but do know that you can change the armor rating by doing these up and down things here. This increases the class size, the armor area, it also increases the armor strength a lot, obviously, and it also increases something that you're going to be wanting to keep an eye on, build time in years. as you add stuff to your ships, and I'll show you how to add stuff and what you need to add, this is obviously going to go up, and as it goes up, it's going to take much longer to build a ship from a shipyard. Oh, I've got to stop clicking randomly. Shields, we're not going to build any shields, we don't need to worry about that. Sensors, this is in order. I believe that this is in order: thermal, electromagnetic, gravitational, and geological. Alright, I think that's it. The first two, which I know are thermal and electromagnetic, your ship comes with basic thermal and electromagnetic detection. However, to detect smaller signatures from other ships, you're going to need dedicated sensors to that, but we don't need to worry about that. You might want to add sensors and then maybe call it a scout ship, but you know. Gravitational, geological, you can only get these by adding sensors, and for this we're going to be adding geological survey sensors, and you're going to see that number go up. Damage control rating. This is how quickly you can repair damage on a ship. Now, the higher this is, the quicker you can repair damage, and damage can occur in two different ways. One is obvious, it gets attacked and it takes damage. The other one is not so obvious, as maintenance failures, and we're going to explain that a bit later when we get to this line, and we're pretty much at that line now because this is completely useless. This is the planetary protection value, and the planetary protection value is basically how good your ship is at protecting a planet. Pretty simple. Not really. If you ever get confused as to what a term like BP or PPV or whatever is, it's usually in the glossary of terms. You know, PPV, planetary protection value, BP for build points, and that just sort of gives you a glossary. So if you ever don't know what something is, you can just look it up. The MSP, this is the maintenance survey thingy capacity. This is how much maintenance supplies you can carry on a ship, and that gets increased with engineering spaces and just having a bigger ship in general. The max repair is the biggest repair for maintenance. Alright, this is going to be difficult to explain. You have systems on your ship, so here's your components, and each one is going to take a certain amount of maintenance supplies to repair in the case that it gets damaged. The max repair is the highest value. So if we go over these, you're going to see that you have crew quarters, fuel storage, engineering spaces, and bridge. So one of these is going to require 6 maintenance supplies. Now, why is this number important? You usually want to take more than what the max repair says, at least what it says, because usually, particularly with geological survey vessels, you'll have very, very low failure rates, and we won't see what the failure rate is until we put on an engine and make it a military vessel, which means it can get failures, but we'll see that soon. Oh, I lost my train of thought, crap. Alright, so if you take less than the max repair, then in the event that your most expensive system gets damaged, and it might be something vital like your engines, or your crew quarters, or your fuel storage, or whatever, gets damaged and you don't have the supplies to repair it, it could be stuck. And to give you a really good example of this coming into play, if you have jump engines on your ship and it jumps to another system where you haven't colonized anything, and then all of a sudden your ship's jump engines break down due to maintenance failure, and you don't have enough maintenance supplies, and your ship's going to be stuck there for a very, very long time, and it probably won't get out anytime soon. So you've basically lost a ship. These things are expensive. You do want to keep an eye on these. Fuel capacity, that's pretty straightforward. How much fuel your ship can carry. The range, this is for ship engines, how far they can go. From 100% fuel to 0% fuel without refueling. You'll get something once you have engines. And you'll see this design is classed as a commercial vessel for maintenance purposes. So that's everything there, and most of those aren't important, but what is important is what is going to be required for this geological survey vessel. Now, this is the available components. You research components from the Create Research project, and we're going to create engines, because there aren't any engines here, as you can see, if you look. And then you research that project. So you create a project, you put specific parameters down for your project, so like fuel efficiency for engines or resolution size for sensors. We'll get to both of those, trust me. And then your researchers, we went over the research before in a previous tutorial, you research those things, and then they come up in this components menu, and you can put it on your ship and install it, and then you can build a ship with that. So let's start off by adding something to the ship. At the moment it's very bare bones. This is what you start with, and it's what you always start with. Let's add something to the ship and watch some of these values change. So obviously we're building a geological survey vessel, so let's add a geological survey sensor. We'll just add one for now. Alright, so as you can see, our armor went up. Now that's because you need more armor. You need a certain amount of armor so your ship doesn't sort of like fall apart. It needs to have a certain strength. And if it doesn't have that required strength, then you can't build the ship. It automatically gets added, and it's the minimum you need to build the ship. And as it goes up, it's going to obviously become more expensive, and it's going to take longer to build. So keep that in mind. Now you'll notice some of these values have changed. For example, it's come up here that we've put on a geological survey sensor, and it's producing 1 survey point per hour. To survey a planet, you need a certain amount of points, and you get these points every hour, as it says. And once you get enough points, you will be able to survey a planet. Simple enough, I guess. As you'll see, our max repair also went up a lot. Obviously this thing is expensive to repair. And you'll also see our geological sensor thing went up from 0 to 1. And our armor in width, I believe that is, also went up. So if you'll notice, if we add armor rating from 1 to 2, this number's going to change from 1 to 2, and I believe, if I'm right, this number's going to change to 6. Okay, it doesn't, but whatever. That's basically how high your armor is, and this is how long in width your armor is. It's sort of like an area thing. So now we've added a geological survey sensor. Next thing we want to deal with is engines, because we don't have any engines in this list at all, and our ship's getting nowhere without engines. So let's go and design some engines. So to design something, anything really, you go to Create Research Project in the Empires drop down. You'll get the empire which you're producing it for. You only have one, which is your empire. You'll have research project type. Now we're trying to build engines, so let's find engines. Here it is. Now you'll get a couple of things here. Engine technology. This determines what kind of technology you're going to use for your engines. This changes things like power output, you know, cost required, the crew even. Mostly the cost though, and the thermal signature too. As you'll see, the thermal signature of ion is much higher than nuclear. Now ion is much better than nuclear. As you can see by here, the power output's much better than a nuclear. It's much more expensive though. It has a higher cost. It's got a much bigger thermal signature. So we really don't need ion engines for this. So we're going to use, we're not even going to use nuclear pulse. We're going to use nuclear thermal, and conventional engine is the worst you can possibly get. It's really crap. Don't use it. Nuclear thermal. This is cheap. This is easy to produce. It keeps your ship small and all that good stuff. You really don't need anything big for a geological survey ship. That's the thing. You want them to be fairly quick at what they do. You don't need them to be big and bulky and able to defend themselves from attack. you don't need that. You want them to be really fast, and you want them to do their job quickly so you can find out which planets you need to colonize and which planets you need to start mining on. Now, this is your power versus efficiency. You can minus the power efficiency, but you can also get an increase in the power. Also by increasing your power and decreasing its efficiency, you'll also notice that EXP goes to 7%. What is EXP? EXP is explosion percentage chance. In the event that this engine gets damaged, there is a 7% chance that it will explode, and bad things will happen. So, we're just going to leave this here, because I really don't want my engines exploding in the case of an event failure. Fuel efficiency. You want this to be as high as possible, but I will note that nothing changes when you do this except the efficiency. Now why is that? Because you have to research better fuel efficiency. So there is no drawback to having good fuel efficiency, but you have to research it, and researching it, as far as I remember from my brain right now, is quite expensive. You don't need to worry about hyperdrive efficiency. We really don't need to worry about hyperdrive efficiency. Not for this type of engine. Thermal reduction. We can reduce our thermal. So it's going to be a lot harder to detect the ship, however, it costs more. This is the development cost in RP. This is research points. The higher this is, the longer it's going to take to research. However, for the purposes of this tutorial, and for the purposes of future possible tutorials, we're going to be using Space Master, and we won't have to worry about this too much. I'll show you Space Master soon. We're about to get to it. The engine platform. Now, you can change these to either commercial engines or military engines. Now, in this case, you do want to have a military engine. You don't want a commercial one. Not for this kind of ship. Military, you'd imagine, you know, military ships, ships that fight. That's what you would imagine it's for. But it's not really just for that. You can use it for geological survey ships as well. I prefer to. It's just, I feel a lot more comfortable giving it a military engine. I mean, giving it a commercial engine increases its thermal signature by an absolute crapload. It also increases the engine size, and that's going to increase our cost dramatically. As you can see there, it went up, I mean, about 40 research points. So keep it nice and cheap. We really don't want anything too expensive to begin with. We want it nice and cheap. That's our proposed system parameters, and there's our notes. We don't have any, so we can rename this to whatever we want. We'll call this basic starter engines. You can keep it to whatever it was before if you want, and we'll go create. Now you only need to click that button once. Don't be afraid if nothing happens. It's meant to be like that. Now if we go to our economics page and we go to our research page and we go to our engines, which should be in here, power and propulsion, and here it is, basic starter engines that we just designed. Once we research these, we can put them on our ship. Now, we're going to activate Space Master, and I'm going to show you this very quickly. Notice that there are only 2 buttons here. When we come back, there's going to be more. So let's turn Space Master on. If you put a password for your Space Master in, enter it now. If not, leave it. Now you'll notice that in brackets our SM has come up, so we're now in Space Master mode. Now look at this, we've got 2 things here. We've got instant RST, and we've got instant. Now, instant RST instantly gives this race all design but unresearched race specific tech. We don't need to worry about this, all we need to do is instant. Now, instant costs research points. Your research points are shown somewhere. I'm actually not too sure where they're shown though. If I knew, I would find it. Maybe it's in the summary. I can't actually remember. But somewhere it tells you how many research points you have left on it. We'll instant, we'll see if we can see any numbers go down. So we go to our basic starter engines and we go instant, and we go yes. Huzzah. So now we've got our engines fully researched. Now, the reason you can instant stuff like this, I'm not actually too sure, but there's two reasons that I believe that the developer has done this. One is so the start doesn't take you 50 years to get your first ship, and secondly, it simulates the idea that for the past 30 years or whatever, you've been developing space tech, and instanting to the point where you run out of research points basically simulates what you've researched in that time. So we'll go back to class design and we'll exit, we'll reopen it so we can get our engines there. Notice that the ship design auto saves itself, so you don't have to worry about it disappearing. Where are those engines? Here they are. So we can add as many or as little of these engines as we want, but for various reasons you may want less or more. Obviously, build time is going to go up as you add more of these. Class size is going to go up, so it's going to cost more. Things like fuel use will go up. Well, no, not fuel use, but how much fuel it actually uses. Notice that the range, I'm fairly sure, will go down. Yeah. So, with more engines, you can get to places quicker, but you won't be able to go as far. So note that. So that's also important to note. Now, 2,380 kilometers a second. That's pretty damn fast. Also notice that a couple of these have come up. The only ones that have come up now that you really need to know are annual failure rate and something failure rate. This is every 5 hours or so they'll check your ship for maintenance failures, and this is the chance that they'll find a failure. This is the chance that they'll find a failure every year, and this value is probably a lot more significant. You want this to be fairly low. Now, if this was a commercial vessel, if we had made these commercial engines, then we would not have failure rates. But also we'd have other things to consider, like our ship would be much more expensive, it'd be much more bulkier. And we don't really want bulky, we want small, fast, efficient, and we want to worry about as little things as possible. So, we're actually fairly close to finishing this design. There's not too much more we want to add. I usually like to add another geological sensor. Now, you also notice our annual failure rate is up to about 13%. I don't like the annual failure rate to be that high. You can decrease that by adding engineering space. As you can see, the rating tops for failure rate. So if we add an engineering space, our annual failure rate went down. I'm going to keep it there. Also note that our acquired crew has gone up a lot since we started this. Now this is also important. If it hits higher than 250, which is our current life support, then we're going to have to add more crew quarters, and that's just going to bulk our ship down even more. So you want to try and keep this crew down as low as possible, but at the same time it obviously can't be avoided. You're going to have to add crew quarters for certain ships at some point, particularly the big warships that you'll be producing much later. And you can sort of experiment with those warships, but we don't need to worry about that. Right now what we need to worry about is one last thing, is an active sensor. Now an active sensor is a sensor you have on all the time, obviously. So we'll go and we'll start researching an active sensor. Now an active sensor is used to detect things like ships and planets and whatnot. It's basically so your ship knows where it's going. Now, there's a couple of things to take into consideration here. You'll have strength. Having higher strength costs more, but obviously it'll be much stronger. You'll be able to detect things at a further range. So if the sensor strength was smaller, you would have to be closer to detect a ship. EM sensor sensitivity. All this really does is increase the range that you can see an object. That's as far as I'm aware. That's all I can tell right now. Total sensor size. This greatly increases things like the maximum range versus these things. But it also obviously increases the size of the sensor. So that's going to make a bigger ship, and therefore it's going to be slower, yada yada yada. The tutorial on the Aurora official site recommends you have approximately a 20 million kilometer active sensor. So let's see if we can work our way towards that. Now, this is our minimum resolution. So if we were to bump this up, notice that our maximum range has gone up significantly. This almost doubled, as it probably should have, considering that we just doubled our sensor size, which makes sense. So obviously our sensor size has gone up. Sensor HDK. HDK is something I haven't explained yet. I probably should have explained this earlier. HDK is hits to kill. Basically, if it takes damage, one shot, and it's gone. You can increase the hits to kill by adding armor. There's also a chance that your item will still be destroyed even if its hits to kill is higher than 1. So you got to take that into consideration as well. But again, this ship is not designed for combat, nor is it designed for finding trouble so much as it is fighting, really. So we don't need to worry about getting higher hits to kill numbers. Also note that when we increase our sensor size, the crew would have went up, or should have went up anyway. Yeah, our crew doubled as well. So obviously when we go back to the life support thing, you know, is our thing going to have enough life support? It's all about efficiency. So this is fairly close to what we want, so we're not going to play around with this. You could get a better resolution. Now you're probably wondering why you want a better resolution, because as you can see, if we add more resolution, our cost doesn't go up. If we add it heaps more, it still doesn't go up. Why? Well, I was thinking about how to explain this, and I thought the best way to explain it is to think of it like a computer's screen resolution. Now, let's just say for this, for most people, for this monitor anyway, for this monitor, you need a 1280 by 1024. That is its native resolution. That is the resolution that is designed to be used. Now, the smaller your screen, the smaller the resolution that it will be preferred for, and obviously the smaller resolution. Alright, so also note that when you, alright, to put this in the simplest terms, I'm getting muddled up here, I'm very sorry. If I screw this up a lot, I am sorry, it's very complicated, as you've probably noticed. It is a lot to take in and remember and explain. If you decrease your resolution, you'll notice that the icons on your desktop and whatnot get bigger. Same sort of concept applies here. If you have a larger resolution, then your objects are going to be smaller. Now what does that mean? That means that if you try to detect a ship at a certain distance, if it's so far away and your resolution's too big, you won't even be able to see it. So by increasing your resolution, you'll get much better range to sort of find ships, but if you increase it too much, then you won't be able to see the ship entirely because it'll be too far out. So there's obviously a minimum range that it can be detected and a maximum range, which is here. But there is also a minimum range that it can be detected, and if you change the minimum resolution, then that changes as well. Also note that say if we're in combat and we want to shoot down a missile that's coming straight at us, we don't want a massive resolution, because the missile's not even going to pop up on a massive resolution, it's too big. You want a really, really small resolution, probably 1. You want it to be point blank range. You want it to have a very limited range, but you want it to be able to actually see the missile. That was probably better explained than in a ship example. Hardening, we don't have any tech for this, so ignore it. Active sensor type, missile fire control or search sensor. Missile fire control obviously controls how the missiles are fired. the search center is what we want. So let's create this. Don't instant it, just create it. Name it what you want, I'll just leave it as that. Create. Alright. Instant. Let's find sensors. There's the one we just made, it's the cheapest one there. Let's instant it. Cool. Let's go back to, oh god, wrong menu, my bad. We go to class design. And we add a sensor. We only need one. So note our range. That's versus an 1,000-ton target. The resolution, which is our minimum resolution. And that's pretty much it for that. Also, things like annual failure rate, I think that went up by 1%. Obviously, cost is going to go up, and build time is going to go up too. So you want to keep certain things to a minimum, so you don't want to overbuild. That's probably the biggest tip I can give. If you're going to try and build something, don't overbuild it. You don't want to build something with excessive crap that you really don't need on it. Because not only is it going to take long to build, but it's probably going to be useless in the long run. Even if you think it might become in use later, it probably won't. I'm going to add one more engine as well, just to get a better speed. And yeah, I think that's about it. I think I'll add one engineering space to accommodate for our annual failure rate, and I think that'll be fine. So that's my ship. You can do it the way you want, but this is just to sort of give you an idea of how it's done. So that'll do for our geological survey vessel. This is complicated, and I'm going to do a much better explanation on this when we design a warship. For now, this is just meant to be a very basic understanding of how the shipbuilding works, and what you have to do to get components, and what you have to look out for on those components. Okay, so there's our build points there. Notice that they've gone up, I think it's about triple. Alright, so this is our current ship in its current state. Now, we're gonna go out for a second. We're gonna instance some more tech. We're going to instant jump point theory. Now, I've got to remember where this is. I always forget where it is. I'm fairly sure it's in here. It might not be. As much as I want to pause the video right now, I'm not going to. I'm just going to show you how bad I really am at this. And to show you how complicated it is, because there's a lot to it. This is how you learn things in this game. You sort of experiment, and you find out about things. There's a couple of things like crew quarters here. So if you want better crew quarters, you can come here and research those. I always forget where bloody jump point theory is. Maybe I don't have what I need to research it yet. Again, you got to research certain things before you can get certain techs, like the next level. Maybe this is it. Nah, that's not it. Alright, we'll come back to jump point theory later when I figure it out. The next few videos or so will probably fix this up. I was going to show you how to make a gravitational survey vessel as well, but I guess this has dragged on long enough. I really don't need to go into detail anymore. This is a basic ship. This is what you're going to want to start off with in the game. This is the first ship you really want to design. And the gravitational one too. And in the future I'll explain that. Now, I don't want this to drag on too long, or else we'll probably suffer some desynchronization with the audio issue that everyone seems to be having. So we're going to stop there. Finally, we want to get one copy of this ship. And in the next tutorial, I'll recorrect my stupid mistake and figure out how to get jump point theory and get a gravitational survey sensor. And I'm also going to show you how to use those ships. For now, I'm going to show you how to basically build one. Now, here's your remaining build points for your ships and your planetary defense centers. This again sort of simulates what you start with. So you can choose what you want to start with, and once this hits 0, you can't instant anymore. I'm fairly sure you actually can do it more if you so desire, but in the game's terms that would be considered cheating. So you can do that to test things, but if you want to play a proper real game the way the developer intended it, don't cheat, because cheating is not cool. Everyone knows that. Let's get 2 of these out and add. You'll notice our total cost there, it's going to be deducted. Simple. And finally, if we go to our system map, you'll see that a battle task group, which is actually 2 of our survey ships, I actually assigned them to the wrong group. I'll show you how to change their assigned groups and whatnot. If you go into the OB creation, you'll see that I have to assign it to a different task group. What I should have assigned it to is a survey task group. That was my fault. You can assign it to what you want. If you're stupid like me and you're following this tutorial step by step, you'll have it as battle task group, and it's all my damn fault. But get over it. So, there's our battle task group, and it's containing of 2 ships, and they're going to go around these planets, these asteroids, survey them, and they're going to add to this little menu of minerals, and you're mostly going to find them on asteroids. And just to quickly explain before I end this, because it's been dragging on for so long now, you'll see these numbers here, and you'll see that the... Alright. You won't see that the game is crashing. You'll see that there's numbers. These numbers are jump point surveys. The gravitational survey ships, they're similar to the geological survey ships, but instead of surveying for minerals on planets, they survey for jump points. Now, jump points take you to different solar systems. So at the moment we're in the solar system, which is called Sol. You're going to find different ones as you survey these, and as such you'll find different planets to colonize in different areas, and they'll probably contain different types of minerals and have different whatevers. They might have factions on them and whatnot. So I'm going to end it here, and the next one's probably going to be the gravitational survey ship and how to move your ships around. This is a fairly long tutorial of a ship design bit, but it had to be done, and it was quite important to explain because it's a fairly fundamental part of the game, sort of experimenting with ship designs and seeing what works, what doesn't. It's part of the fun, but that's just to show you how it works and how to get a basic ship. So, I've reiterated myself enough times now. I'm going to end it here. Thanks guys for watching, and I will see you in the future videos. That's the wrong button.